At my husband's funeral, I heard my daughter-in-law say, "Speed up the inheritance. I'm putting the old lady in a nursing home." She had no idea my husband had added a clause about her in the will before he passed. I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from, so I can see how far my story has reached. I never thought that at 70 years old, I would find myself shrinking into the shadows to avoid my own family. The day I buried William, my husband of 45 years, was the day I discovered how little I was valued by those who should have cherished me most. The funeral service had been beautiful, if such a word can be applied to something so somber. St. Mary's Church was filled with friends, colleagues, and family members. William had been deeply respected in our community, a kind, thoughtful man who'd spent his career as a high school principal. He'd touched many lives. I had held myself together throughout the ceremony, accepting condolences with quiet dignity, my hand clutched tightly by our son Robert. He'd been attentive all day, making sure I ate something, guiding me gently through the crowd. His wife Diana had been there too, of course, elegant in black, her expression appropriately solemn. After 2 hours of handshakes and embraces, the weight of grief pressed down on me until I could barely breathe. I needed a moment. Alone. The funeral home had a small side room, a place for families to gather privately. It was empty now, everyone having moved to the reception area. I slipped away, telling no one, desperate for just 5 minutes of silence. I sank into an armchair, in the corner, closed my eyes, and finally allowed the tears to flow freely. William was gone. My partner, my confidant, my anchor. 45 years together, and now I was alone. I don't know how long I sat there before I heard the door open. Quickly, I wiped my eyes, not wanting to be caught in such a vulnerable state. But the newcomers didn't notice me in my corner, partially hidden by a large flower arrangement. "I told you we should have brought this up before he died." Diana's voice, stripped of the sympathetic tone she'd maintained all day. "It wasn't the right time," Robert replied, sounding tired. He was suffering enough. I froze, not meaning to. Eavesdrop, but suddenly unable to announce my presence. "Well, now we have to deal with her," Diana continued, her voice sharp with irritation. "You need to talk to the lawyer first thing Monday. We need to know exactly what we're getting and how. Quickly!" "Diana, please. My father isn't even in the ground yet. And your mother isn't getting any younger. The longer we wait, the more complicated things will get." There was a rustle of fabric, Diana adjusting her dress, perhaps. "Agilizem a partilha. Vou mandar a velha pro asilo." My Portuguese was rusty, a language I'd learned decades ago when William and I had spent 2 years teaching in Brazil, but I understood enough. "Hurry up with the inheritance. I'm sending the old woman to a nursing home." The old woman. Me. Robert sighed heavily. "She's not going to want to leave the house." "Of course not. But she can't manage alone, and you know it. The place is too big. There are stairs, and she's already getting forgetful. It's the sensible solution." "Maybe she could live with us?" Robert suggested, his tone uncertain. Diana's laugh was cold. "In our house? With my schedule? Besides, you know how she is. Always. In everyone's business. I can't have her there judging everything I do." "She's my mother, Diana. And you're my husband. This is our life, our future. The money from selling that house could make a real difference for us." A pause. "For the kids' college funds." I sat, perfectly still, hardly daring to breathe. William had been gone less than a week. We hadn't even had the reading of the will yet, and already they were dividing up our lives, making decisions about my future without me. "We'll talk about this later," Robert said firmly. "Today is about respecting my father." "Fine. But don't put this off too long. The real estate market is hot right now." They left, the door closing softly behind them. I remained frozen in place, their words echoing in my head. The old woman, the house, the nursing home. When I finally managed to stand, my legs trembled beneath me. I caught sight of myself in a mirror on the wall, pale, aged, diminished by grief. Was this how they saw me? A burden to be managed? An obstacle to their inheritance? As I stumbled back to the reception, one thought kept repeating in my mind. William had said something to me, just days before he passed. We'd been discussing finances, and he'd squeezed my hand, his eyes serious despite his weakness. Eleanor, I've taken care of everything, he'd said. Don't worry about the future. I've made sure you'll be protected. At the time, I'd thought he was just trying to comfort me. Now, I wondered if he had somehow known what was coming. The house felt different when I returned from the funeral. Emptier, colder. William and I had lived in this modest, two-story colonial for nearly 30 years. We'd raised Robert here, celebrated holidays, weathered storms both literal and figurative. Now, its familiar walls seemed to echo with absence. I wandered from room to room that evening, touching William's things, the reading glasses he'd left. On his nightstand, the cardigan still hanging on the hook by the door, the half-finished crossword puzzle on the coffee table. Small pieces of a life suddenly interrupted. I couldn't bring myself to move any of them. Sleep didn't come easily that night. Diana's words kept replaying in my mind like a cruel taunt. Mandar avelia pro asilo. Send the old woman to a nursing home. I'd spent my entire adult life as a kindergarten teacher, nurturing other people's children. I'd raised my own son with all the love and patience I could muster. Was this all it had amounted to? Being discarded when I was no longer useful? The following morning brought a cheerful knock at my door. Diana stood on my porch, a bright smile plastered on her face, holding a casserole dish. Eleanor, I brought you some chicken pot pie. I know how hard it can be to cook for just one person. I forced a smile and invited her in, wondering if she had any idea I'd overheard her plans. Had she always been this transparent, or was I only seeing it now? Thank you, Diana. That's very thoughtful. She swept into my kitchen, setting down the dish and immediately opening cabinets as if she owned the place. Let me help you organize a bit. This kitchen is just so. She paused, searching for a diplomatic word. Cluttered. I watched as she began rearranging my spice rack without permission. My spice rack, which William had built for me as an anniversary gift 15 years ago, with each shelf carefully measured to fit the space beside our stove. I've managed just fine with my kitchen for 30 years, I said, more sharply than I intended. Diana turned, surprise flickering across her face before her sympathetic mask slid back into place. Of course you have. I just thought I'd help make things easier now that. She trailed off, gesturing vaguely at the empty chair where William used to sit. Now that I'm alone and apparently incapable? The words slipped out before I could stop. Them. Her eyes widened slightly. Eleanor, no one thinks you're incapable. We're just concerned about you managing this big house all by yourself. It's not that big. 2 bedrooms and a study. And stairs, she pointed out, as if they were a deadly hazard. And that old water heater that's always giving trouble. And the yard work. I sipped my tea, saying nothing. William and I had discussed downsizing years ago and decided against it. We loved our home, our neighborhood, the garden we'd cultivated together. The water heater worked perfectly fine with regular maintenance, and I had a service for the heavier yard work. Robert and I have been talking, Diana continued, her voice gentle but firm. We think it might be time to consider some options that would be more manageable for you. Options? Senior living communities. There's a lovely one just 20 minutes from our house. Private apartments, but with staff available, meals provided, activities. She was already pulling brochures from her purse. Had she brought them to the funeral too? I'm not ready to leave my home, Diana. I kept my voice steady, though my hands wanted to tremble. No one's saying right this minute, she backpedaled. But it's good to start thinking about it. Planning ahead. Planning ahead. The funeral was barely over. I found something interesting yesterday, I said, changing the subject. Going through William's desk calendar. He had several appointments with Mr. Goldstein in the weeks before he passed. Mr. Goldstein was our lawyer, had been for decades. Diana's smile faltered for just a moment. Oh? Yes? I wonder what they were discussing. Probably just updating his will. Standard procedure when someone is. She waved her hand again, unwilling to say dying. Probably, I agreed mildly. When is the reading scheduled? Robert's been handling that. I think it's next week. She stood abruptly. I should get going. I have a charity luncheon at noon. After she left, I sat at my kitchen table for a long time, staring at the brochures she'd left behind. Smiling seniors playing golf, eating in elegant dining rooms, attending art classes. None of it looked terrible exactly, but it wasn't my home. I thought again of William's words. I've taken care of everything. Had he suspected what might happen? After he was gone, had he known his son and daughter-in-law better than I did? That afternoon, I called William's doctor, Dr. Patterson, who had been both his physician and our friend for many years. Eleanor, how are you holding up? His voice was warm with genuine concern. Injing, I said. Actually, I'm calling about something specific. Those last few weeks, did William ever talk to you about me? About his concerns for what would happen after? There was a pause. He did, yes. What did he say? He asked me to keep an eye on you, Dr. Patterson said carefully, and to be available if you needed a medical opinion about anything. A medical opinion? About what? Another pause. About your capacity to live independently. He was concerned that there might be pressure for you to leave your home before it was medically necessary. My throat tightened. I see. Eleanor, are you experiencing such pressure? It's been suggested that I might be better off in a senior living community. Already? His tone sharpened. That seems premature. You're in excellent health for a woman of 70. Your last physical showed no cognitive concerns. Your mobility is good. There's no medical reason you can't continue living independently. Relief washed over me. Would you be willing to put that in writing? Absolutely. William asked me to prepare such a letter, actually. I have it ready. He thought you might need it. My William. Even in his final days, he'd been thinking ahead, anticipating the challenges I might face. Tears pricked at my eyes, but for the first time since his death, they weren't entirely sorrowful. There was gratitude there, too, and something else. Resolve. I wasn't going to be pushed aside so easily. The next morning, I noticed Diana's car pulling into my driveway again. This time, she wasn't alone. Robert was with her, and they both wore expressions of determined cheerfulness that immediately put me on guard. The battle for my home, my independence, my dignity, had begun. I didn't sleep well that night, my mind racing with worries about what Diana and Robert might be planning. By morning, I'd made a decision. I needed to be proactive rather than reactive. William had always told me that preparation was half the battle. When Robert and Diana arrived at my door, I welcomed them with coffee already brewed and a calm smile that belied my inner turmoil. Mom, we wanted to talk to you about some practical matters, Robert began, settling onto the sofa where his father used to sit. The sight of him there, so different from William yet occupying his space, made my heart ache. Of course, I said, passing him a cup of coffee. I've been thinking about practical matters too. Diana perched on the edge of her chair, her posture perfect as always. We've been researching some wonderful living communities, she said, pulling out more glossy brochures. This one has a waiting list, so it's good to get on it early. I nodded, appearing to consider the brochures. Before we talk about that, I'd like to ask Sandra to join us. Diana's eyebrows rose. Sandra? The nurse who helped with Dad? Yes. She's stopping by this morning. I glanced at my watch. She should be here any minute. As if on cue, the doorbell rang. Sandra Peterson had been William's home health nurse during his last months. In her 50s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, she'd become something of a friend. Sorry I'm late, she said, stepping into the living room. Traffic was terrible. Diana's eyes narrowed slightly. Eleanor, we were hoping to have a family discussion. Sandra was practically family these last few months, I replied. And she has professional experience that might be helpful. Sandra sat beside me, her presence bolstering my courage. She'd witnessed Diana's thinly veiled impatience during William's illness, her reluctance to help with his care. Robert, Diana, I began, I appreciate your concern about my living situation. But I've given it a lot of thought, and I've decided to stay in my home. Diana's smile tightened. Eleanor, we understand that emotionally, this house means a lot to you. But practically speaking, I interrupted gently. I'm perfectly capable of living independently. I've spoken with Dr. Patterson, who agrees there's no medical reason I should leave my home. Robert frowned. You spoke with Dad's doctor about this? William asked him to assess my capacity before he passed, I explained. He's provided a written statement. I pulled out the letter Dr. Patterson had delivered yesterday, passing it to Robert. His eyes widened as he read it. This says you're in excellent health for your age, he said, sounding surprised. Had he already convinced himself I was frail? I also spoke with Mrs. Winters from the hospital's social services department, Sandra added. She can set up an assessment to determine what supports Eleanor might need to stay home safely. Diana shifted uncomfortably. That seems premature. We're just exploring options. Actually, I said, it seems like you've already decided I should move to an assisted living facility. Send the old woman to a nursing home, were your exact words, I believe. The room went silent. Diana paled, then flushed. I don't know what. You think you heard, but... I heard you at the funeral, Diana, I said quietly. In the side room. I was there, sitting in the corner. Robert's face fell. Mom, I don't blame you for thinking about the future, I continued. But I'm not ready to leave my home, and there's no legitimate reason I should. Sandra has helped me develop a plan to age in place safely. Sandra nodded. Simple modifications like grab bars in the bathroom, a medical alert system, and regular check-ins can address most safety concerns. I'd be happy to review the plan with you both. Diana stood abruptly. This feels like an ambush. It's not meant to be, I assured her. I'm just being practical, as you suggested. The doorbell rang again. This time, it was Emma, my 16-year-old granddaughter, letting herself in with the key she'd always had. Hi, Grandma, she called, then stopped short seeing everyone gathered. Oh, sorry. Am I interrupting? Not at all, sweetheart, I said. We're just having a family discussion. Emma, tall and thoughtful like her grandfather, glanced around the tense room. Is everything okay? We're discussing Grandma's living situation, Robert explained. Emma frowned. What about it? Your parents think I might be better off in a senior living community? I explained gently. What? Why? Emma looked genuinely shocked. Grandma's fine on her own. She literally taught me how to make lasagna from scratch last weekend. Diana's lips pressed into a thin line. Emma, adult decisions are more complicated than that. I'm not a child, Mom, Emma replied. And Grandma's not incapable just because she's 70. I felt a rush of affection for my granddaughter, so fiercely protective. She'd been coming over more frequently since William passed, sometimes doing homework at the kitchen table, sometimes just sitting with me in comfortable silence. "Emma, why don't you help me bring in some cookies from the kitchen?" Sandra suggested, giving the family a moment. When they left, Robert sighed heavily. "Mom, I just want what's best for you." "I know you do," I said, reaching for his hand. "But what's best for me right now is staying in my home with appropriate supports. William and I discussed this before he passed. This was our decision." Robert looked torn, glancing between me and Diana. "The reading of the will is tomorrow," I reminded him. "Let's wait and see what William wanted before making any major decisions about the house or my living situation." Diana stood, smoothing her skirt. "We should go. I have a hair appointment." After they left, Sandra stayed for another cup of coffee. "That went about as well as could be expected," she observed. "Thank you for coming," I said. "It helped having you here." Emma returned from seeing her parents out. "Grandma, are they really trying to make you move out?" I sighed. "They're concerned in their way." "They're being ridiculous," Emma declared. "Don't worry, I won't let them push you around." Looking at her determined young face, I felt a flicker of hope. I wasn't entirely alone in this battle. The offices of Goldstein and Associates looked exactly as they had 5 years ago when William and I had last updated our wills. The same leather chairs, the same landscape paintings, even the same receptionist with her kind smile and graying hair. "Mrs. Bradley, it's good to see you again," she said, rising to greet me. "Though I wish it were under different circumstances." "Thank you, Martha," I replied, clutching my handbag a little tighter than necessary. "Is everyone here already?" "Mr. and Mrs. Bradley just arrived. Mr. Goldstein will be with you shortly." I nodded and settled into one of the waiting room chairs, my heart pounding unnaturally fast. I'd barely slept last night, wondering what William had arranged in his final meetings with the lawyer. Robert and Diana sat across from me, Robert flipping through a magazine without really seeing it, Diana checking her watch every few minutes. "How long is this going to take?" she whispered to Robert. "I have that charity board meeting at 2. Robert shushed her, glancing apologetically in my direction. Mr. Goldstein appeared in the doorway, dignified in his gray suit, his silver hair neatly combed. "Mrs. Bradley, Robert, Diana, please come in." We followed him into his office, taking seats around a polished conference table. Mr. Goldstein settled at the head, a thick folder open before him. "Before we begin," he said, "I want to express my condolences, Eleanor. William was a good man and a dear friend." "Thank you," I murmured. "Now, to business." He adjusted his glasses. "William's will is fairly straightforward. Eleanor, as his surviving spouse, you inherit the house outright and all its contents. The joint bank accounts, of course, were already in both your names. There's the life insurance policy, which names you as beneficiary." Diana shifted in her seat. "And the investment accounts?" Mr. Goldstein glanced at her, his expression neutral. "I'm getting to that, Mrs. Bradley. William had a retirement account worth approximately $450,000. Upon his death, Eleanor is the primary beneficiary." Robert nodded, looking unsurprised. "There is, however, a codicil that William added 3 months ago," Mr. Goldstein continued, turning a page in the document. "It concerns the house specifically." I felt a flutter of anticipation. This must be what William had been planning. "The house at 1142 Maple Street is bequeathed to Eleanor Bradley with lifetime right of residence. Upon her death, or should she voluntarily choose to sell the property, it will pass to Robert Bradley." Diana leaned forward slightly, her interest piqued. "However," Mr. Goldstein emphasized the word, "there is a condition. If Eleanor is forced or pressured to leave her home against her wishes, or without the documented recommendation of at least 2 independent medical professionals that she requires care she cannot receive at home, the house will not pass to Robert Bradley. Instead, it will be sold, and the proceeds will be donated to the Alzheimer's Research Foundation, in memory of William's mother." The room went silent. I stared at Mr. Goldstein, hardly daring to believe what I'd just heard. William had created a legal safeguard to protect me from exactly what Diana had been planning. Robert's face registered shock, then confusion. I don't understand. Why would Dad think Mom would be forced to leave her home? Mr. Goldstein's expression remained carefully neutral. I cannot speak to his motivations, only to the legal provisions he established. Diana's face had drained of color. She gripped the armrests of her chair, knuckles white. This is ridiculous, she said, her voice tight. No one is forcing Eleanor to do anything. I'm simply conveying the terms of the will, Mr. Goldstein replied calmly. There are additional provisions. William established a trust to pay for home maintenance, property taxes, and in-home care services should Eleanor require them in the future. He thought of everything, I whispered, a wave of gratitude washing over me. There's more, Mr. Goldstein continued. William left a personal letter for each of you. He handed me an envelope with my name written in William's familiar handwriting, then passed one to Robert. There's nothing for me? Diana asked, unable to hide her indignation. I'm afraid not, Mrs. Bradley. Robert stared at his envelope, making no move to open it. I slipped mine into my purse, wanting to read William's words in private. Are there any questions about the will itself? Mr. Goldstein asked. Robert cleared his throat. Can the condition about the house be contested? Diana shot him a warning look. Mr. Goldstein folded his hands. You can contest any will, Robert. But I must tell you that William was of sound mind when he made these amendments. He underwent a cognitive assessment specifically to prevent any such challenge. Additionally, we videotaped the signing session, which is standard practice in our firm when significant changes are made. I see, Robert said quietly. If there are no further questions, I'll have Martha provide you with copies of all the documents. Outside the lawyer's office, Diana didn't even try to hide her anger. This is absurd, she hissed to Robert. Your father specifically targeted me with that clause. Diana, not now, Robert muttered, glancing at me. I need to get home, I said, not wanting to prolong this uncomfortable moment. Emma is coming over after school to help me sort through some of William's clothes for donation. I'll drive you, Robert offered. That's all right. I drove myself. I'd been driving for 50 years without incident, though Diana had recently begun suggesting it might be time to reconsider my driving privileges. Mom, we need to talk about this, Robert said, his expression troubled. Yes, we do, I agreed. But not today. Today I need to process what we've learned. As I drove home, my hands steady on the wheel despite my emotional turmoil, I thought about the envelope in my purse. What final words had William left for me? At home, I made a cup of tea and sat in my bedroom, carefully opening the envelope. My darling Eleanor, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're facing the challenges I feared. I've seen how Diana looks at our house, how she talks about next steps when she thinks I'm not listening. I know our son. He's a good man but easily influenced by her ambitions. I'm sorry I won't be there to stand beside you, but I've done what I can to protect you. The house is yours for as long as you want it. The money is there to maintain it and care for you. Don't let them rush you into decisions that aren't right for you. Remember what we always told each other? We may bend, but we don't break. You're stronger than you know, Eleanor. I've seen that strength every day for 45 years. All my love now and always, William. Tears flowed freely down my cheeks as I held the letter to my heart. Even from beyond, William was protecting me, fighting for me. When the doorbell rang, an hour later, I had composed myself. It was Emma, backpack slung over one shoulder, her expression unusually serious. Grandma, we need to talk, she said, stepping inside. Mom and Dad are fighting about the will. Dad let something slip about, A nursing home. What's really going on? I ushered Emma into the kitchen, my mind racing. How much should I tell my 16-year-old granddaughter about the tension between her parents and me? She was perceptive. Too perceptive sometimes. But she was still young. Would you like some lemonade? I asked, buying myself time. Grandma, Emma said, dropping her backpack on a chair. Please don't treat me like a kid. Something's wrong, and I want to know what. I sighed, pouring us both glasses of lemonade. Your mother thinks I should move to an assisted living facility. Emma's eyes widened. But why? You're perfectly fine here. She believes the house is too much for me to manage alone. That's ridiculous, Emma scoffed. This house isn't even that big. I smiled sadly. I think there are other considerations involved. Like what? I hesitated, not wanting to speak ill of Diana to her daughter. Financial ones, perhaps. Emma's face darkened with understanding. The house. They want to sell it, don't they? I nodded slightly. Your grandfather anticipated this might happen. He put a clause in his will to prevent me from being forced out. Good for Grandpa, Emma said fiercely. Then her expression shifted to worry. But Mom won't give up easily. I've seen how she gets when she wants something. That was an understatement. Diana had always been determined, calculating. It was partly what had made her successful in her career as a real estate agent. She saw opportunities where others didn't, and she pursued them relentlessly. I can handle your mother, I assured Emma, with more confidence than I felt. Emma took a long sip of lemonade, her brow furrowed in thought. You know, she said finally, I could move in with you. I nearly choked on my drink. What? Just hear me out. I'm going to state next year. It's only 20 minutes away. I could live here instead of the dorms. I'd help with the house, and Mom couldn't argue that you're all alone. I was touched by her offer, but shook my head. Emma, that's very sweet. But your first year of college should be about making friends, having the full experience. I'd still have all that, she insisted. But I'd have free housing and you'd have company. It's practical. Practical. Diana's favorite word. Before I could respond, the front door opened. Diana's voice called out, Emma, are you here? Emma rolled her eyes. In the kitchen, Mom. Diana appeared in the doorway, her professional smile firmly in place despite the tension I could see in her shoulders. There you are. I thought you were helping Grandma sort through Grandpa's clothes. We were just about to start, Emma said, her tone suddenly defensive. Diana glanced between us, clearly suspicious. What were you two discussing so intently? College. Plans, I said smoothly. Emma was telling me about the programs at State. Diana nodded, though she didn't look entirely convinced. Emma, can you give Grandma and me a few minutes? There's something we need to discuss. Emma crossed her arms. If it's about Grandma, I think I should stay. Emma, Diana said, her voice sharpening. This is an adult conversation. I'm not a child, Mom. I placed a hand on Emma's arm. It's all right, sweetheart. Why don't you start looking through the closet upstairs? I'll join you in a bit. Emma hesitated, then grudgingly picked up her backpack. Fine, but I'm not going far. She gave her mother a pointed look before heading upstairs. When we were alone, Diana sat across from me, her smile fading. Eleanor, we need to talk about what happened at the lawyer's office. I thought we agreed to discuss it another day. This can't wait, Diana insisted. That clause William added, it's manipulative and unfair. I raised an eyebrow. Unfair? How so? It's clearly designed to prevent us from helping you make necessary decisions about your future, or designed to prevent you from making those decisions for me, I countered gently. Diana's eyes narrowed. You think I'm the villain here, don't you? That I'm just after the house? I think you have strong opinions about what should happen to me and this property, I said carefully. Opinions you expressed quite clearly at the funeral. Her cheeks flushed. I was emotional that day. We all were. Yes, grief often reveals our true thoughts. Diana leaned forward, her voice dropping. Eleanor, be reasonable. This house is worth at least $450,000 in today's market. That money could do so much for Robert and Emma's future. Instead, it's just sitting here, underutilized. This is my home, Diana, not an investment property. And it could be someone else's home, a young family who needs the space. Meanwhile, you could be in a beautiful apartment with people your own age, activities, dining options, all the things you think a woman of 70 should want, I said quietly. She sighed in exasperation. I'm trying to be practical. So am I. That's why I've asked a home modification specialist to assess what changes might make aging in place safer for me. Diana's eyes widened. You what? Sandra referred me to someone. They're coming next week. Grab bars in the bathroom, better lighting, perhaps a first-floor laundry conversion. Small changes that can make a big difference. That's throwing good money after bad, Diana protested. You're spending money to stay in a house you'll eventually have to leave anyway. According to whom? I asked. Dr. Patterson says I'm perfectly capable of living independently. For now, Diana said dismissively. But what about in 5 years? 10? If and when I need additional help, Williams Trust will cover in-home care. Diana stood abruptly, pacing the kitchen. You're being stubborn and selfish. Robert is trying to do what's best for everyone, including you, and you're making it impossible. Is it selfish to want to stay in my own home? I asked. To honor William's wishes for me? William isn't here anymore, Diana snapped. The rest of us need to move. Forward. I felt a flash of anger, sharper than any emotion I'd allowed myself to show since this began. It's been 2 weeks, Diana. 2 weeks since I buried my husband of 45 years. And you're already talking about moving forward with selling the home we built together? She had the grace to look momentarily abashed. I didn't mean... Yes, you did, I said, rising to my feet. You've made your priorities very clear. Now let me make mine clear. I am staying in this house. I am mentally and physically capable of doing so. And any attempts to suggest otherwise will only damage your relationship with me, and potentially with Emma, who isn't nearly as oblivious as you seem to think. Diana stared at me, clearly not used to such direct confrontation from her mother-in-law. For a moment, I glimpsed uncertainty in her eyes. Then the front door opened again, and Robert called out, Hello? Mom? Diana? Diana stepped back, composing herself just as Robert appeared in the kitchen doorway. One look at our faces told him he'd walked into the middle of something. What's going on? He asked warily. Your mother and I were just discussing some options, Diana said, her professional mask sliding back into place. What options? Robert asked, looking between us. Before either of us could answer, Emma appeared on the stairs. They're arguing about whether Grandma should be forced into a nursing home so you guys can sell her house. The kitchen fell silent. Robert stood frozen in the doorway, his gaze shifting from Diana to me, then up to Emma on the stairs. That's not... Diana began, but Emma cut her off. Don't lie, Mom. I heard you on the phone with that real estate agent yesterday. You said the house could go on the market by summer if you played your cards right. Robert's face paled. Diana? Is that true? Diana straightened her shoulders. I was exploring options. That's what responsible adults do. Behind my back? Robert asked, his voice unnaturally quiet. When we agreed to wait? I had never seen my son look at his wife with such disappointment. In that moment, I realized how much Diana's ambition had shaped their marriage, perhaps without Robert fully recognizing it. I think, I said carefully, we all need to sit down and have an honest conversation. No more schemes, no more whispers. Just truth. Robert nodded slowly. You're right, Mom. He pulled out a kitchen chair and sank into it, suddenly looking exhausted. Emma, come down here, please. Emma descended the stairs, her expression a mix of defiance and anxiety. She took the seat beside me, a silent declaration of allegiance. Diana remained standing a moment longer, as if maintaining the higher ground, before finally taking the last chair. I know you think I'm the villain here, Diana began, looking directly at me. But I'm just being practical about a situation none of us asked for. Mom, Emma interjected. There's practical and then there's cruel. Emma, Robert warned. No, let her speak, I said. Everyone deserves a voice in this conversation. Emma straightened. Grandma is perfectly capable of living here. She's not sick, she's not confused, she doesn't need to be in a home. You just want the money from selling the house. Diana's face flushed. That's not fair. Isn't it? Emma challenged. We see how you are with money, Mom. Always talking about upgrading, investing, moving up. But this isn't just a house. It's Grandma's. Home! Robert ran a hand through his hair, looking more like his father than I'd ever noticed before. Diana, we talked about this. We agreed not to pressure Mom. And when exactly was I supposed to bring it up? Diana demanded. When she's 80? 90? After she falls down those stairs and breaks her hip? Stop it, I said firmly. I'm sitting right here. Don't talk about me like I'm not in the room or incapable of understanding. Diana had the grace to look embarrassed. I'm sorry, Eleanor, but my concerns are valid. They are, I conceded, which is why I'm taking steps to make this house safer as I age. The modifications Sandra recommended are sensible. I'm getting a medical alert system, and yes, someday I may need more assistance. But that day is not today, and when it comes, there are options beyond selling this house and moving me to a facility. Robert looked at me with new respect. You've really thought this through. Of course I have. William and I discussed it extensively when he got sick. I folded my hands on the table. Now I understand that you're disappointed about the house, Diana. You saw it as an asset, an inheritance. But it's my home, and William wanted me to stay here as long as I wished. He made that legally clear. Diana's expression tightened. That clause was manipulative. It was protective, I corrected. And necessary, apparently. The tension between us stretched taut. Then, surprisingly, it was Robert who broke it. I'm sorry, Mom, he said quietly. Dad was right. I didn't see what was happening. Diana turned to him, betrayal flashing in her eyes. Robert, no, Diana, this isn't right. He met her gaze steadily. How would you feel if someone decided your home, your life choices, weren't valid anymore? If they discussed sending you away as if you weren't capable of having a say? That's different, Diana protested. I'm not 70. And 70 isn't 90, I reminded her. I could live here independently for another decade or more. Emma, who had been watching the exchange intently, spoke up. And I've been thinking. My offer to live here during college is serious. It would be good for both of us. Robert looked surprised. You want to live with Grandma instead of the dorms? Why not? Emma shrugged. State is close, the commute is easy, and I'd save thousands in housing costs. Plus, I'd be here at night if Grandma needed anything. I hadn't expected Emma to bring up her offer in front of her parents, but I was touched by her determination to help. Diana looked between her daughter and me, clearly calculating this new development. That could actually work, she admitted reluctantly. At least for a few years. I could almost see the gears turning in her head. If Emma lived with me, Diana couldn't push the nursing home narrative. And if she waited until Emma graduated, perhaps the housing market would be even better. I'm not asking for your permission, Mom, Emma said firmly. I'm telling you my plans. Robert smiled slightly at his daughter's boldness. It's not a bad idea, and Mom wouldn't be alone in the house. Diana nodded slowly, recognizing defeat, for now. Fine, if that's what everyone wants. What I want, I said, looking at each of them in turn, is for this family to heal. William would hate seeing us torn apart like this. Robert reached across the table for my hand. He would. And I'm sorry we've added to your grief, Mom. Diana didn't apologize. I hadn't expected her to, but something in her posture eased slightly. We should go, she said, standing. Emma has homework, and Eleanor probably needs to rest. Actually, I said, I was hoping Emma could still help me with William's clothes. It's time to start letting go of some things. Diana hesitated, then nodded. All right, Robert and I will come back for her later. After they left, Emma and I spent the afternoon sorting through William's wardrobe. Each shirt, each pair of shoes, held memories. I cried sometimes, but it felt cleansing rather than devastating. You know she hasn't given up, Emma said as we folded a sweater I'd decided to keep. Mom, she's just regrouping. I know, I said, but I'm prepared now, and I have allies. The months that followed brought changes, but not the ones Diana had planned. The home modifications were completed, making the house safer without changing its character. Emma graduated high school and moved into the second bedroom that fall, bringing youthful energy to the quiet house. Robert came by more often, sometimes without Diana, reconnecting with me in a way we hadn't managed since he was young. Our conversations grew deeper, more honest. One evening, as we sat on the porch swing William had hung decades ago, he confessed that his marriage was struggling. Dad's letter made me think about a lot of things, he said. About the kind of man I want to be, the kind of example I want to set for Emma. I squeezed his hand, offering silent support. Diana remained Diana, practical, ambitious, focused on appearance and advancement. But something had shifted in the power dynamic of their relationship. Robert stood up to her more, especially regarding me. And when she brought up the house again, as I knew she would, he shut the conversation down firmly. Mom stays where she wants to stay, he told her. End of discussion. As for me, I discovered that 70 was not the end, but another beginning. I joined a water aerobics class at the community center, reconnected with old friends, and even started volunteering at the local library's literacy program. The grief of losing William never fully disappeared, but it softened, making space for new experiences. On the anniversary of William's death, I visited his grave alone, placing fresh flowers against the headstone. You were right, I whispered. I didn't break. I bent, but I didn't break. Walking back to my car, still driving despite Diana's concerns, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. William had given me one final gift, the space and time to discover my own strength to remember who I was beyond being someone's wife, someone's mother. I was Eleanor Bradley, 71 years old, still living in my own home, still making my own choices, still finding joy in each day. That night, Emma and I had dinner on the patio, watching fireflies blink in the gathering twilight. Her first year of college had been full of new friends and challenges, but she seemed content with our arrangement. Do you ever regret turning down the dorms? I asked her. She shook her head. Never. This was right for both of us. She smiled mischievously. Plus, it drives Mom crazy, which is a bonus. I laughed, a full, rich sound that filled the evening. Air. William would have loved hearing it. The battle wasn't over, of course. Diana would try again someday. But I was no longer afraid. I had found my voice, my strength, my dignity. And I wasn't letting go.